Hi there, my name is Marco Vasquez and this is my final project on web scraping. First off, what is web scraping? Web scraping is a technique that allows data scientists to collect large amounts of information in a very fast manner and put them in easy to understand formats. This works by essentially building a program that has what are called spiders and crawlers that go into a main site and then essentially crawl through the different subsites of that main site and collect information in formats that are, like I mentioned, very easy to read, like JSON and CSV. It is very important to, not just for data scientists, but also for search engines, for like Google's, to index websites. Before we continue, let's talk about the legality of web scraping. Is web scraping illegal? So in 2019, LinkedIn lost against IQ Labs after the court essentially ruled that public sites are able to be scraped as long as they do not require like a login or something that is like personal information that would make it more like a private site. So the three technologies that I explored are Beautiful Soup, Scrappy, and Selenium. Beautiful Soup is a Python package for parsing HTML and XML. It is very easy to build with and prototype with, however it lacks the tools necessary for more serious scraping. On the other hand, Scrappy is an open source framework for extracting data from websites. It is a little bit more complicated to learn and to start prototyping with. However, it has very useful techniques that can make scraping a little bit easier in the long term. And then there's Selenium. Selenium is actually not a web scraping tool like Beautiful Soup and Scrappy are. It is originally a website automation tool. However, we use it for its useful libraries that it has. In particularly, Selenium can handle AJAX requests and JavaScript element interactions, both of which Beautiful Soup and Scrappy can struggle with, so many people tend to include Selenium in their web scraping projects. Now we have to consider the difference between spider and crawler before we continue. So both of them are typically confused when used in web scraping. However, a crawler is a program that automatically follows every link to index every data, while a spider can perform the same tasks as a crawler, but it also downloads and processes the data within those various links. An example of this for Scrappy would be like the crawler spider. It's a subclass of the base spider and can be used to follow like the robots.txt file, of which I will talk about in the future slides. So now I'm going to show my Beautiful Soup example. I have it on a Jupyter notebook, of which I will open up right now. So starting off, I imported the request. I imported Beautiful Soup as BS4. I also imported pandas. Pandas is something that I'm going to be using to essentially put out my data into a data frame that I can do some analysis on later. So I essentially made a get page function that has a page number and it has a header. The headers are like a typical web browser that a site would see. And then I made a request. I'm going to do a get request specifically for the Amazon site. I'm going to be doing like a search for shoes. And then there's a specific page number that I will be indexing depending on what I pass in on my get page. So for every page, I'm going to be essentially collecting the data of that entire page. And then here's where Beautiful Soup comes in. There's the content that it parses. It generates what's called a soup. And then with this soup, I find the data that I care about. In particularly, this would be like the title, the author, rating, reviews, price. And then I put it into a nice list that I can append as rows and then return. And this is going to be happening for every page. Right, so here I would call this function for every page, and then I would also append it to another list. Then I would flatten the list and then put it into a data frame that makes it a little bit easier to do some analysis with. Additionally, if we want to, we can write it to a CSV, just because my current data frame has the ability to write to CSV. Okay, now I'm going to be going into the Scrappy example. So the first thing you want to do is you want to do a pip install Scrappy on a terminal, and then you want to create a project. The way that Scrappy creates projects is by doing Scrappy start project, and then you want to call it whatever name you want to call it. I'm going to use example, and then if you go into the example project, you're going to see that there's a Scrappy config. This is just a general project configuration settings that you can change. And then you're going to see a couple of different items. You're going to notice that the spiders folder is empty, and that's because we don't have any spiders that we have built yet. So to generate the basic spider, what we want to do is you want to do Scrappy gen spider. We want to follow the instructions that are essentially outlined here. So Scrappy gen spider example. Well, we have to call it something different, so I would call it example Scrappy. And then we want to give it the website that we're going to be scraping. So that just created the basic template, and then you're going to see that the spiders folder is no longer empty. So I'm going to go through my project that I already built. It's Amazon Scrappy. Oh. So that has a couple of different components, and if you do like a code dot, you're going to open it up on a terminal. Sorry, not on a terminal, on a VS Code, and I already have that open. So going down the list, there's the items. So the items is something that you would, they're essentially the fields that you would be building for what you want to be formatting. In my case, I don't have any items because I put it all together on my spider. Actually, I'm going to first go into the spider. So my spider is called Amazon.py. There is a specific queries that I would do here. So like I'm going to be searching in Amazon for women's exercise shoes, women's sandals, women's high heels, women's boots, flats, a couple of different things. To make things a little bit easier, I'm just going to reduce the query to a single one, just for demonstration purposes. I imported a couple libraries like urllib and re. These should already be part of Python. The name of the spider is Amazon Spider, and then I'm going to be doing a start request function. This is where we begin. So we will begin at the start request, and then we're going to be doing a for loop for every specific query that we have here. We're going to be essentially passing in a URL, and we're going to be doing a request, like a Scrappy request. So a get request on this website with that specific query. So you're going to see that there's a yield here, Scrappy request, and then the callback is the get products list. So we're going to be jumping into this get products function. The get products list is going to be, we're going to be using XPath specifically to search for the different elements, and then we're going to be extracting them so that we can actually do something with those elements on the page. There's the products that we're going to be searching for from the response, and then we're going to be doing a for loop for each specific product. We're going to be getting what's called the Amazon serial number. This serial number is, we can use it specifically on the site to get the different products, the different site of the products, and then we can go into that. I'm going to do another request on that site so that we can start scraping some of the details of those products, right? So this is going to happen for every product, and then we're going to search to see if there's a page. If there is indeed a page, we're going to be essentially joining that page and then repeating the same process. We're going to go back to the get product list function and repeating the same process for that page. So going into the get product details function, there is, like I mentioned, the Amazon number that we want to get. There's a title, the image, if we want to search for specific images, rating, reviews, price, sizes and colors, bullet points, and seller rank. We're going to be extracting all of these. And then, like I mentioned, I do not have an items like fields that I have built. I just simply return a specific like sort of dictionary of all these different elements. So this is all happening specific to the spider, and then afterwards we're going to be going into the pipeline. So typically the pipeline is used to essentially handle different items, different spiders, outputs coming from those spiders. For our specific case, we're going to be processing the items and putting them in a way that we can read them a lot nicer once we import them. So For example, we're going to be like calling .strip to kind of eliminate some of the spaces. We're going to be replacing the, like for example, it will be like 4 out of 5 stars. We're going to be removing the out of 5 stars and just leaving the 4. Another one would be, we're going to be, like I said, bullet points, available colors is going to be stripping the spaces, removing commas. So like a number would be like 10,000 with a comma in between. We're just going to be removing the commas. A little bit more things that I also do here is I want just the first ranking. Amazon seems to have like multiple rankings on a page. I just want the first one, like the global one. That's a little bit easier to work with. And then a little bit more removing of the spaces. So there's also like the settings. There's a couple of different things that you can enable here. Something really important that you want to do is you want to, if you're going to be using your pipelines, you want to essentially uncomment this. This was originally commented out. If we uncomment it, we're going to see that the pipeline is actually going to be running. This 300 number is essentially a priority. It is what we're going to give it whenever we want to run things in a specific order. So 300 would mean that it runs after all the other previous lower numbers. So we would run the pipeline, for example, we would run the pipeline first before the downloader middlewares. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later into what the downloader middlewares are, as well as the random agent middleware that I have here.